Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me here today at Stef's Peru Travel Tips. I'm Stef, and it's been a really long time since I've made a video, so I'm kind of nervous, and I have my notebook here that I'm going to read off of in case I forget anything, and I hope that doesn't annoy you guys or seem very obvious, but I'm going to try to do my best to remember this information. So let's get started with this video. Today's video is going to be about safety concerns when traveling to Peru, and around maybe somewhere in the middle of this video or the end, I will have some general safety tips that you can use when coming to Peru, but you might also be able to apply them as well when you travel to other foreign countries. So let's get started. A lot of tourists generally have safety concerns when traveling to Peru or specific foreign countries, either because they have seen things on the news such as riots or other forms of civil unrest, or they have read up on crime in the country that they're planning on visiting, or maybe they know natives from that country or foreigners who have traveled there that have had bad experiences. So I know that it can be easy to get discouraged about traveling to a country when you have so much negative information coming in, and at least in my experience, I feel like Peruvians are very proud of their country and their culture, and they know that Peru has a lot to offer, but at the same time, at least for me, I feel like a lot of people in Lima live in a constant state of fear. They're always scared that they're going to get mugged or that something bad's going to happen to them when they leave their homes, or even just being at home. So what I want to do in this video is try to present to you the information that you need so that you're aware of what could possibly happen to you while you travel here. But I don't want you to get discouraged from traveling to any foreign countries just because it's too dangerous. I think in general there's always danger present anywhere you go, and I just think that the main thing you have to do when you go anywhere is just keep an eye out and just try to be as safe as possible. So here we go. This video is a little difficult for me to talk about because I have to be as objective as I can be, but at the same time it's my personal video blog, so I am going to be to a certain degree subjective, and I just hope that all of you can respect me and my opinion, and I welcome your opinions as well, so just be sure to write down whatever it is that you would like to mention at the bottom of this video in the comment section. So let's go. The U.S. Department of State has ranked Peru as critical for crime, and we actually have one of the highest crime rates here in Latin America. So that's not really good to know, but it's not that bad. I mean, it all depends on what goes on when you come here. So some common crimes here are pickpocketing, purse snatching, smash and grab robberies. A smash and grab robbery is basically when you are in your car and someone comes up to the car or wherever you're in the vehicle and they break the window, they grab your purse or your bag or whatever you have there in that moment, and they just run away with it or drive off or whatever. And they also have express kidnappings, which is basically when they pick you up off the street and they take you to an ATM and they make you withdraw all of your money, and they force you to give them whatever you have on you, and sometimes they even take you all the way home so that they can just take whatever else you have before they finally let you go. And then there's also carjackings and burglaries as well. I'm sorry if this is really loud, but my grandmother has decided to cook while I'm making this, so there's going to be noise. So why are foreigners easy targets? Well, foreigners are perceived as generally being wealthier than the local population. You guys tend to have, extra items on you or cash on you, so, we think that you're loaded, basically. And common items stolen are smartphones, cameras, iPads or tablets, wallets, and laptops. So as you can see, small electronic devices are generally stolen besides wallets. For those of you that don't know the history of Peru, I don't know a whole lot about it myself because I didn't live here and I wasn't raised here, so I didn't have to study this, but I did try to do some research in order to make this video. And basically Peru has had a pretty rough history, as most countries have, but our history, the country has just now been able to stabilize very recently. So it started going through a period of militarism all the way, like I think in the 50s or 40s or something around there. This militarism started, and it just continued on for a couple of decades, or a few decades, and then there was an emergence of these domestic terrorist groups or insurgent groups, and then we also had inflation plus hyperinflation in the 80s, so it's been really rough. And the last major terrorist attack that Peru had was in 2002, when there was a bomb left in a shopping center that's right in front of the American embassy. So that was the last major attack in 2002, and it's 2014, so that was just 12 years ago. So the country has not really had a whole lot of time to really have like a period of just like peace, you know. We still basically had to deal with terrorism up until the early 2000s, and in the 90s is when the whole economy started stabilizing, because there was seriously like crazy hyperinflation where people could barely buy anything because it was just, the prices were ridiculous. And a lot of people actually did leave the country for that reason as well, because life here was really scary, you know. It was incredibly difficult to buy things, and there was the whole terrorism thing. You just never knew if, you know, on your way to work something was going to happen to you, or something, a building was going to be blown up, or a bus was going to be exploded. So it was really, really tough for the people that were living here then. That's basically like the general gist of it, because I don't want to go into too much detail, because I don't want to possibly get anything wrong here. So I don't want haters to be like, hey, you told the story wrong or something. I don't know. So some general tips for when you come to Peru are: number one, don't exchange a lot of money at the airport, because the exchange rate in the airport is really, really terrible. I believe when my aunt came here in February of 2014, the exchange rate within the airport was 2.5 soles, the Peruvian currency, 2.5 soles per dollar. And outside of the airport, you know, in a bank or whatever, it was like 2.8. So it's a really big difference when you're exchanging high amounts of money. Tip number two is that you use a dispatch taxi, or as we call it here in Peru, taxi seguro, which is basically just a number that you call and that you reserve a taxi for a certain time, and they go pick you up, and then the taxi driver and the company communicates via radio or something. And it's just it's more for you just to be safe, because I don't want to get too into this right now, but you can get mugged if you take a taxi out of the airport. How can I explain this to you very quickly? Within the airport, there are some taxis that you can take, and these are usually overpriced, but they're safe taxis. And you can take those taxis, and outside of the airport, there's also other local taxis, and these are the street taxis. And if you happen to take a street taxi, you know, something could possibly happen to you if you decide to take that kind of taxi, because it's not something that's 100% sure. It's just a regular person on the street picking you up in a car that probably has a taxi sign, and you don't really know if you can trust them or not, if they're actually going to take you to your destination, or if they're going to take you somewhere else to be mugged. So I recommend that you, at least for your first visit in Peru, if you don't know the area, you definitely should try to use a dispatch taxi or reserve a taxi beforehand, because it's for your safety. Number three is that you place your suitcases in the trunk of the car, and any small bags that you may be carrying with you, or book bags or whatever, if you carry it with you in the car, then I suggest that you put it somewhere where it can't be seen. Try to keep it out of sight, because people do get mugged outside of the airport when they're leaving, because they have their suitcases, you know, in the seats with them, or their bags in the seats with them, and they'll get their things taken. Tip number four is that you should always try to be reserved, and that's because you don't want to tell strangers too much personal information about you, because they could be sizing you up to see if you're a good potential victim for them. So just be careful when you mention things to taxi drivers, police officers, and maybe customs officials, because you just never know if they're gonna let someone else know that you're about to come along, and that way they can steal your things from you. So just try to keep things limited, or maybe even make up a story. You know, I once had a friend that came down here, and he's actually like told the taxi driver that he was an FBI agent, And he said things like, yeah, I have a gun, but I can't show you right now or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the guy actually believed him, and he just kept up this little game, this little conversation, because you just never know who you can trust. So maybe you could do that as well. You know, make up an entertaining story to tell your friends later on or something. Tip number 5 is that I recommend that you not carry your passport around with you everywhere. And that's just because if you lose it, it's going to be a pain in the neck to have to get a new one, especially if you're going to be leaving soon. So what I recommend you to do is to leave your passport in some sort of locked safe in the hotel where you're staying at, and carry around a photocopy of your passport and the pages that contain the visa, maybe if you needed a visa to come here, and a copy of the immigration form that you signed upon entering. And also, if you have another form of identification such as a driver's license, you should try to carry that around as well, along with the photocopies of your passport and your visa and your other stuff. So yeah. Tip number 6 is that you try to keep a low profile. Do not carry around flashy jewelry or loads of money with you, you know, expensive electronics. Just keep it simple here, you know, because that definitely draws attention to you. And I think that's a little common sense, is that you don't want people to be looking at you. You want them to think that you're part of, you know, the local population, you know, even if you are a foreigner. There are lots of foreigners that live here as well, but they're pretty relaxed, you know, in a regular t-shirt and pants and whatever, you know. So don't come in here wearing like super nice name brand stuff or whatever, because people look at that and, you know, they're gonna think that you have lots of stuff on you. So it just, you're making yourself a potential target. Tip number 7 is that I recommend that you avoid walking in dangerous districts, especially at night. Try to walk along well-lit streets wherever you go, and yeah, just try to be careful, because, you know, it can be pretty scary or intimidating when you're in a dangerous district, and, you know, it just looks not very pleasing to the eye, and there are sketchy people walking around you. So just try to avoid those areas if possible. For tip number 8 is that in case you happen to find yourself in an area that is not very welcoming, do not act afraid or frightened, because you totally just look like you don't belong, and obviously people are going to pick up on that. So just try to be alert, don't act paranoid. Tip number 9 is that I recommend that you pay attention to people who are paying extra attention to you, and to be careful about groups of children that run up to you, because kids try to use that to their advantage sometimes. Just because they're kids, you know, you think, oh, they're little and they're innocent and whatever, but that's not always the case. I mean, these kids will come up to you and they will just take your wallet off you or whatever else you have on you without you even noticing it, and sometimes they can even attack you, because there are little bands or little gangs of children that do mug people. So you have to be careful with that. Tip number 10, and I think this goes without saying, but do not get drunk if you go out to bars or clubs, and try to stay with the people you know. This actually leads me into tip number 11, which is to try to always travel with a group of people. Remember that there is safety in numbers. You don't want to be caught alone, you know. It's always much safer when you're with people. Tip number 12 is that you hold your camera firmly by the straps if you have like a semi-professional camera or another type of camera that goes around your neck, because, you know, people will easily just yank that from you if you don't have it around your neck, or if you're not holding it tightly. And if you're not using it, then try to put it away when not in use. I know that a lot of people who have semi-professional cameras or professional cameras, they put it in the little special camera bags, and I think that's all good and well, but I personally prefer to use this whole like little book bag thing that's like this, and it just goes around my body this way. So whenever I'm not using my camera, I just put it in my bag and I walk around, and I feel like this way it's just much more secure for me. It's much more difficult for a thief to yank my camera from me if I have it in this, as opposed to having it in a little camera bag that I'm holding it or something, you know, carrying it around. So yeah. Tip number 13 is that you do not leave your belongings in the restaurant, on the restaurant table, or just away from you, you know. If you are going to the bathroom, I suggest that you take your purse with you. I mean, a lot of restaurants nowadays, especially the not more expensive ones, but the ones that are relatively expensive ones, they have these little straps or hooks where you can put your bags, your purses, or whatever you have. And that's all nice, you know, it prevents people from just taking your purse without you noticing. You know, it's a little difficult to get it out of those things. But what I recommend is that, you know, if you have your phone or other little small objects, you definitely want to take that with you when you go to the bathroom, and just be careful not to leave them in the bathroom. Tip number 14 is that you try to be careful when handling money, because people will sometimes try to cheat you out of money. They'll try to give you false bills, or bills that are, and coins that are really worn out. So if they're just really worn, I would just tell the person that's handing me the money to give me a nicer looking bill as opposed to what they're trying to give me in that moment. And yeah, you just got to be careful. I'm gonna make other videos on taxi taking tips and public transportation tips, and also money tips. So I'll have more information on those things in videos to come, but for now, these are my general tips, and I hope that they help you somewhat when you come down here, and or if you're traveling to another country, maybe these could prove to be useful. So that's it for my general tips, I believe. And right now I'm just going to give you guys my personal experience with crime in Peru. I haven't really dealt with any seriously crazy stuff. I mean, I remember when I first got here, my aunt let me use this really old little cheap phone that she had, and it was really worn out, but it was just, you know, a phone that I needed to use so that I could make any calls I needed to. And, you know, it was so beat up that I seriously didn't think anyone would want to steal this phone, because it was a really, really old model, and I just thought, you know, who on earth could possibly want this phone? Well, one day I'm leaving work, and I put the phone in my little book bag mesh pocket that's on the outside. So for those of you that don't know what that is, it's something like this, you know, these kinds of pockets. And I put it in that little mesh pocket, and, you know, I got off a few blocks later at this bridge where it's dangerous, and I started walking, and 2-3 blocks later, when I wanted to see what time it was, and I reached back for my phone and it wasn't there. So I took my book bag off and I looked, and the mesh pocket actually had a slit in it, and someone had taken the phone from me at some point without me realizing it. And I thought that was so weird, because I didn't feel the slightest thing. So that was my experience with that. Another time was when I went to Mistura, which is a food fair or festival thing here that we have usually in September, that started maybe 7 years ago. And yeah, in Mistura, a guy came up to me and asked me if I could take his picture, and I was with my aunt and my cousin. So I said, yeah, sure. I took his picture, and me being the nice person that I am, I said, oh, do you want me to take another one? And the guy was like, no, it's okay, and he left. Well, that day, I was wearing pants that had those fake pockets that you can't put anything in, and I had a sweater that had a front pocket. So I had my phone hanging out of that pocket somewhat. And then a few minutes later, when I went to try to watch this little musical show going on, and I wanted to take pictures of it, and I reached for my phone, it wasn't there. And this was right after I took that man's picture. So I don't know if at somehow, you know, between the time that I gave him back his phone or his camera or whatever, and, you know, he said bye, or I don't know what, but I don't know if he took it off me then, or if it fell out or what, but I'm assuming that he probably stole it from me. So that's what happened there. And I mean, those are the major incidents that I've had. There's also been points where twice, I believe, when I was on the bus, and a choro is what we call a thief, a street thief or whatever, and a choro came up to the bus, and I think he stole the bus conductor's money or something. The bus conductor is the person that takes the money from the passengers. So yeah, he like ran up to the bus when it had just stopped to pick up a passenger, and he took something from the bus conductor and then he ran off. And another time was when I was on the bus in, again, that dangerous area where the bridge is, and yeah, a guy came on the bus pretending like he was gonna get on, and he actually like reached for this woman's purse, snatched it, and ran off. So that's what I've experienced as far as crime here in Peru. Nothing really like horrible, at least directed to me. But I have had friends and other people. I've known two people, one person that was express kidnapped, but she was, you know, okay after that. They just made her give them her money and a bunch of other things, and she wasn't raped or anything. And then I had a friend that was almost express kidnapped, but luckily a man walking on the street decided to try to defend her, so she was really lucky. And then a friend that also lives in Miraflores. She was maybe a block and a half or something from her home, and she lives in a nice, safe area. And a guy came up to her and demanded that she give him everything she had, and she was just in shock and was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. And then she was calling out for help, and people around her were not going to help her because I guess they were afraid. Oftentimes here, at least in Peru, you know, people don't usually want to get involved because they put themselves in danger by getting involved. So people don't always lend a hand when you're being mugged, unfortunately. And that's not always the case. Like my friend who was almost express kidnapped, like that guy definitely defended her against like 2 guys or something, and that was really nice. But it's not always the case. And in this case, my friend was calling out for help, and she saw some people coming, and they just kind of stopped, like, oh my god, what's going on? They didn't run up to help, and she was calling out for help, and then this car came up, and the driver was actually the thief's accomplice. And the driver was like, he insulted her, and he was like, give him your effing phone, you whatever, blah blah blah. And yeah, my friend threw the phone away from her, and she ran off, and the thief got in the car and they drove away. And that's in Miraflores, which is a very nice area here. At the beginning of the year, when I started making these videos and I was actually in Miraflores recording and stuff with a friend, a Serenazgo woman came up to me and she told me that I should be more careful and I should put my camera away because there were people stealing a lot in the area. And she was telling me how, yes, it's usually a group of a couple of people on a bicycle or a motorcycle, and you know, one is obviously driving or riding the bike or whatever it is, and the other person is the thief, and the person will just snatch whatever you have on you, purse, camera, whatever, and they'll just, you know, right away. So, you know, she told me to be more careful, and I definitely put my camera away then because I had just bought it and it was really expensive. So yeah, so it can just happen anywhere you go, and you have to be really careful. Don't be too confident, but try not to be paranoid or whatever, you know, just be alert. Always be alert, and you know, keep an eye out. That's it. Experience I want to mention is that once when I was in Centro de Lima, which is downtown Lima, with a friend eating at KFC, while we were sitting there, I noticed a group of tourists coming in, and then after a few minutes I went to the bathroom and I happened to see one of the tourists there with a Peruvian woman, and then I left and I sat down and I kept talking with my friend, and then a few minutes later the woman was crying, just bawling, you know, her eyes out. And you know, I happened to find out that the Peruvian woman that she was with somehow managed to steal a bag off of her. She was just confusing the woman with whatever she was asking her, and she somehow created so much confusion that she was able to steal her bag off of her that had like all of their passports and money and all of their stuff. And I felt so bad for her. And the worst thing about this is that the KFC didn't even have a surveillance camera, and the police officers unfortunately were of not much help at all, and there was no way to catch this woman. And I just felt so bad for them because, you know, they were going to leave Peru with such a negative experience, you know, just negative feelings about their time here for the most part, probably, because that can really kill your experience. So I hope that these tips and this information can help you guys limit your risk for when you come to Peru in case, you know, you find yourself in shady areas or whatever. I hope that this limits your risk for danger, and you know, I hope that you still are motivated to come here and visit Peru because it does have a lot to offer. I think it would be a very good experience for all of you. And thank you so much for watching. I want to shout out to my friend Suze, who really pushed me to get back to making these videos. So thank you so much, Suze. And thanks so much again for watching, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. Bye. Take care. Just keeps sticking out, and it looks like I'm all crazy hair. Oh, it just keeps coming out. I need a bobby pin or something. I need some country. I'm sorry. Crap, I messed up. So as you can see, small electronic. Oh crap, I can't speak anymore.